Three mere mortals discover their ability to create entire universes with their minds alone. Upon discovering their abilities, these three, gods if you will, join forces to create the Dark and Stormy Nights, a supercharged team of creatives with the aim of helping artists and writers around the world while combating the forces of boredom and mundanity.
And
they are
right
the
now,
Dark
Odin
and
is
Stormy
going to
Nights.
be taking a little break from the show. So he may or may not be back, but he needs some time off. So we're going to be handling this, just the two of us, and in future episodes, we might be having some of you on to help us with this story and to talk about your styles and traditions and rituals or whatever.
Right, throw some input into the plotting and maybe, plug your own stories and everything and what you've got going on.
Right. So, but today, Tyr has brought us some story.
I have.
You guys don't know this, but in our time, we've taken a week off, and I am completely out of sorts and have no idea where we are.
It's been a rough week, or a rough couple of weeks, I guess, pretty much for the whole world.
Oh, yeah. Well, at this point, we are in the middle of an apocalypse.
We are a little bit of a pandemic going on.
Yeah.
Just
And people are maybe taking a little far, freaking out.
Well, I mean, it's to be taken seriously, but at the same time, it's hard to bust out that creativity. Why the toilet paper
Why
thing?
are you hoarding toilet paper, you idiots?
Yeah, that's a thing.
Stop doing that.
Yeah.
I want to poop, and you are keeping me from doing it. Cut it out. I'm coming over your house if you're hoarding.
There's some not good stuff going on.
So I will poop in your bathroom if you're going to be that person.
So I feel like we're probably all being affected by just kind of the drain on creativity at the moment. It's so hard to look away from the screens and the Twitter feeds and the news and just...
Can we channel it? Can we channel it into our art?
I mean,
Make
I tried.
suffering
I can't
be our art.
I can't guarantee that any of it's any good, but
well,
I tried.
I'll tell you what. The funny thing about writing is that you have the burden of believability in your fiction. Now you can make monsters and robots and all kinds of things believable, crazily enough, but there are some things that happen in real life
that you couldn't pull off in a book.
No,
yeah.
And this is one of those things. It's the slow motion crumbling of this of our system for the dumbest reason.
I know.
Like,
I know. And that's the thing. It's like truly, you think about like The Stand. Okay, he pulled off the pandemic.
Yeah.
But had he been like, and everybody was hoarding toilet paper, you
I know,
couldn't find
right?
it anywhere. Everybody would have been like, dude, really? Why toilet paper?
There was no hand sanitizer anywhere. Well, the funny thing is that you don't think about implications like what's going on, right? So one of the biggest things, and we've discussed that I've seen this around Twitter, is that this is negatively affecting healthcare workers because the healthcare workers have to go out into public and they have to get their supplies, which are being hoarded. So you have to go out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stores to find a roll of toilet paper, some hand sanitizer. You can't get gloves or masks anywhere. How, as a healthcare worker, are you supposed to do your job without getting sick without these things?
Right, and it's not just that. It's not just those basic supplies either, but these people still have to eat and feed their families. And people are wiping out like entire freezer sections, all the canned goods.
Right.
I had somebody tell me that they went to the store and literally like the stock worker exited the soup aisle and this person literally stuck their arm in there and swiped everything, cleared off the whole shelf into their cart.
Right, and it's like the supplies haven't stopped, guys.
Right, and the thing is that these healthcare workers have to keep going back out to the store over and over and over and exposing themselves like 10 times more because they can't get supplies.
What we're learning here, though, is if you're writing a story about such an apocalypse, these days are the biggest threat isn't the disease, it isn't the pandemic, it's the
panic.
The zombies, it's the idiots.
Yeah.
The apocalypse is morons.
That's
not
true. I don't think it's panic that's driving a lot of the buying to that extent. Like, you're having enough frozen dinners for the next 6 years. That's not panic buying. You're an asshole.
Right, yeah.
So.
Well, and some of these people know it. They're turning around. They're trying to sell it for ridiculous profits.
Right.
Now, what I would write into my story is those people getting shot and their stuff being taken.
Eventually, yeah. We'll
It's
go
gonna
Mad,
go there.
Mad Max, if we hit that point, that's probably the case. You'll get shot for your stock.
Someone pulling up in a Dodge Turbo Interceptor with a dog and a shotgun.
That's something you wouldn't see in fiction. It going from The Stand to Mad Max.
Yeah. And that's realistically, I think that's where it's going, right?
Well, I don't think realistically we're going to get to that point in our lifetime.
I mean, hopefully not, but supply.
But truly, could it? Yeah, that's a connection that could be made.
Supplies haven't stopped rolling, though. I mean, the
right.
toilet paper makes it back in once a week. It's just you idiots keep buying it up. The frozen foods make it back into the stores once a week, but you guys keep buying it up. Guess what?
That's the thing. It's because it's the first people in the stores buy all of it, and that's why everybody else is going without, and it's just crazy.
Well, and then I saw yesterday people, like a huge line for the ATM, and I'm like, what the hell? You know, they're like, oh, well, the financial...
Oh, yeah.
It's like you realize that even if the financial system collapses, you can access your money digitally now. You know, back in the 90s, that might have been a concern, but now you can access your money digitally. But secondly, the dollar will be useless whether it is cash
if the financial
or digital.
collapses.
If the financial system collapses,
unless you got some gold on hand,
right? So your bill,
your
so getting
paper isn't going to do anything,
right? Yeah, it's not going to fix anything. Just stop.
That's a good point.
So,
yeah, some of the things that they used in my. Okay, let me be the first to tell you my dystopian is not what people want to read right now. but yeah, like they did a lot of trading food and stuff or services to get what they needed to get. So.
Yeah, but this is self-made. I mean, look, I'm not saying the pandemic isn't serious or anything like that.
Sure it is.
But that's not what's causing the problems right now.
Right, it's not food shortages and you know, a banking system that's about to crash. There's literally
that's
diseases going around.
The dumb people are causing those problems. So if you know anybody doing those things, tell them, stop. Just stop it. So, okay. So, well, we're not writing about the apocalypse, luckily.
We're not writing about the apocalypse, just one tragic event in the loss of a sorcerer.
But just, you know, a thought of the inspiration that it should bring. Maybe.
Yeah, it definitely makes you think of like those books and how we got it wrong in the most baffling of ways.
Yeah, I mean, I would have never thought. No toilet paper.
Right.
So
you might get a cough. Buy all the toilet paper.
Right. All right. So do you want to read your chapter, at least part of it, for us?
Sure. Yeah, I'll read like the first half, and then we can figure out what we want to change with it.
Sure. Let's go for it.
All right. Lee stumped towards the street, jamming his phone in his pocket, but the rumble of motorcycles stayed his steps. He watched from the shadows of the bar as three men on bikes came into view. The lead man, a big and burly guy with long white beard and a round belly, rode with a skinnier man of average height who might have been dismissed as a lesser threat, but Lee knew his type, and he recognized the feral gleam in his eye as easily as his own. The man was smaller, yes, but a threat in his own right. There was no missing the threat in the third man, a 6'4" wall of muscle. As cocky as Lee was, he knew any day he tangled with that man would be a bad one. The three passed at a concerningly slow speed. The way their noses rose to scent the air would have given away their wear status, even if the emblem on the back of their leather vests hadn't. A snarling white wolf glowered at Lee from their backs. The rune-like lettering marked the imposing MC as Fristfurger. Well known among humans and other alike, with a reputation that told Lee he was best staying out of their way if he wanted to avoid a headache. Once they passed, Lee made his way across the street to deal with Nigel, slipping inside the huntsman just as the wolves circled back. Pushing aside the hunter green plaid window covering, he watched the MC split up and explore the area. Take your time, Lee. I'm sure there's no other bounty hunters jumping on the biggest bounty of the century. Lee spun to face Nigel. The old sorcerer always did know how to get his attention. Biggest of the century? Another apocalypse? He approached the check-in desk where Nigel stood behind the counter, his glamour in place as always, showing the world a disheveled man in a bathrobe, holding his ever-present cup of coffee. To any passer-by, he was Bobby Ray, but Lee knew behind the simple magic that Nigel was as polished as ever. Despite his choice in glamour, the man never had a hair out of place. Nigel waved a hand dismissively. When is there not a looming apocalypse? I called you because there's some new jobs posted that you might be interested in. There's always new jobs. Why this time? Nigel eyed his computer screen as if the old block of junk did anything more than collect dust. Someone summoned a Jorogumo on the east side. Lee rolled his eyes. Pass. I don't have my car right now, and that's not why you called me. We've gotten reports of children terrorizing supernatural communities right here in your own backyard. Lee grimaced. Children? He shuddered. Fuck no. Cut the bullshit. Nigel shrugged. Then perhaps you're interested in the one that could finally pay off that pesky debt that's been hanging over your head. If it's not an apocalypse, what is it? One of our own was killed. A bounty hunter? Nigel met his eye. A sorcerer. Lee let out a low whistle. Really? When? What are the details? Nigel handed over a piece of paper. The address is there. I suggest you hurry. While you were busy getting a lap dance, most of the others headed out the moment it posted. Lee scowled at that bit of news and stomped to the door. Oh, and how's that new partner working out? Lee shot a glare over his shoulder and reached for the door handle. I don't need to remind you that you introduced him to this world. Anything that happens to him now is on you. I suggest you take it seriously. If he ends up dead by non-human means, you could very well end up being the next bounty on the board. Lee shook his head at the threat and walked out. The kid gave him a ride. There was no reason to involve him further. Nigel always did have a flair for the dramatic. He scanned the parking lot of the Huntsman, looking for a ride and sighing in frustration when his phone rang again. He answered the call without looking. I got enough shit going on, Nigel. Why don't you take him in? Lee, it's me. Listen, there's shit going down over here. Gary? Yeah. The Fristvarger are here asking questions. It's not good, Lee. They're looking for you and your partner. I heard of these guys before. They ain't a group you want to mess with. You should steer clear for a while. You and your partner need to lay low. Lee rubbed at the pain forming beneath his skull. Yeah, thanks for the heads up, Gary. He hung up the phone, prodding at his temple, and headed for the red Celica sitting in the parking lot. All right, that's about the first half-ish.
Okay, so the red Celica is Rick's.
Rick's car, yeah.
Okay, is it souped up? Like, is there anything special about it?
Okay,
Is
that
it
was
just
totally not half. It's actually less than half. But, I mean, that's the first breaking point.
Is there anything special about it? Should we, like, soup it up? Should it be a total douche?
Like, that's what I was thinking is, like, what's, like, a douchey car that, like, you know, he could think is a sports car that's really, like, not a sports car?
Yeah, well, he could have the high airfoil on the back like some of those guys do, like, and have the front end lowered down. Maybe
or, like, it, like, has that loud, like, sounds like a motorcycle.
Oh, yeah. They put those noisy pipes on it, maybe some spinner rims.
Right.
Fuzzy dice in the mirror, skull shifter in the center. You know, like.
Oh, that's funny. I should have done the fuzzy dice. I didn't think of it.
Like, you know, he's totally taken, like, the family car and turned it into.
Right.
And it's like, dude. Like,
that ain't a sports car.
You hunt monsters and you drive a souped-up Celica. Good job.
Yeah, I don't know. I was struggling with the car type a little bit.
No, I don't mind the Celica. Celica's perfect.
Yeah.
You know, but maybe it's just a total douche-mobile.
Yeah, like I was looking for, like, you know, the Chad car.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be totally Chad.
Yeah.
You know, so. I feel like the only thing I would say, the only critique, I guess, is that I feel like Lee would keep, like, saying he's not my partner.
To Gary?
Well, in general.
To
in
Nigel.
general. Like, I think it's more of a denial to himself,
Right.
you know, than it is a
So
statement
maybe,
to
like, as
anybody
he
else.
walks out, not my fucking...
Yeah, maybe under his
Not my
breath, it doesn't
problem
really
or
matter. He's
something.
not my partner.
Right.
Not my partner, because everybody keeps saying it.
Right.
Like it's, you know, like it's a fact.
Mhm.
So, and you nearly said the Humpsman instead of the Huntsman.
Did I?
And I feel like that's a perfect name for the strip club. You get the Huntsman, or maybe
That's
it's what they
awesome.
keep calling it. It's not. Maybe it's like Diamond's Palace or something like that.
Right.
But everybody calls it the Humpsman because it's across the street from the Huntsman and
That's
it's
funny.
a titty bar. So, not bad. No, I dig it. I was a little concerned because when we wrote this out, we had some disagreements on how it would all go and everything. And
We did. We didn't. We
And
couldn't
honest-
figure out how to pull Elliot into it.
well, honestly, you made that smooth, you know.
Okay.
And with Gary giving him the warning, that was really what we
Mhm.
needed. Was like shit. You
Right,
know, now he's
right.
got to do something.
Right. Yeah,
So-
like following up Nigel's warning with Gary's phone call, and now it's like, ah, shit. Yeah.
And I'm still hearing Steve Buscemi's voice on the other end of the line. So
Right.
no, I dig it. So all right. So do you want to take the take a break and come back with the other half, or?
It doesn't matter to me. We can do it however you want.
Okay, we'll just take a break and come back with the other half.
All right, sounds good.
Are you scared? You should be. Ooh, gave me a chill. It's the dark and stormy nights, baby.
Okay.
Okay, so we're back from the break, and Tyr has the second part of her chapter to deliver to you.
I do. Do you want me to jump right into it?
Whenever you're ready.
All right. Eliot peeled off his work shirt the moment he was inside his apartment and dropped it to the floor. He sprawled out on his beat-up couch, eyeing the joint between his fingers. Usually it was his favorite way to unwind after a long shift, but after the shit he'd seen, he wasn't sure getting stoned was the best idea. Then again, maybe it was exactly what he needed to process it all. Decision made, Eliot pinched the joint between his lips and dug in his pocket for a lighter. He'd just held the flame in front of his face when the door to his apartment burst open, bouncing against the wall with a bang. Eliot jolted, dropping the lighter in his lap. He snatched it up just in time for Lee to pull the joint from his lips. No time for that, kid. We gotta get moving. Lee pushed aside the hanging sheet over his window to peek outside as he tucked the joint into his breast pocket. Eliot shook his head in disbelief. What the hell are you doing here? Lee rolled his eyes and yanked Eliot to his feet by a skinny arm. We gotta move. He headed for the door, snatching up his bag of Fritos on the way. The man paused to flip through the plastic crate of video games on his makeshift TV stand, grunting in disapproval at the selection as he stuffed chips in his mouth. Are you crazy? I'm not going anywhere with you. Oh, I think you are, kid. Lee dragged him back to the window and pointed out 3 bikers riding down the street. Unless you want to deal with that on your own. Eliot didn't bother to hide his confusion. Why would... The words died in his throat as the 3 passed under a broken street light. Shadows fell over their faces, distorting them into something less human, and the headlights from a distant car hit their eyes in a strange way, making them almost glow, like an animal. One of them broke formation to circle back. They were searching for something. Eliot's eyes locked on the snarling white wolf on the back of the man's vest, and he swallowed hard. Oh, God, are they werewolves? Lee asked from the kitchen, where he was rifling through the cupboards. Yeah, and I don't have time to deal with any family drama right now, so let's cut the conversation and get moving before they pinpoint the scent coming from your car, and then track your ass back up here. What? His voice cracked at that bit of news. Lee swiped the shirt from the floor and tossed it at him. Look, can you catch up in the car? I've already got a headache, and I'm not looking to make it worse. Eliot sputtered a few weak protests as Lee dragged him back down the steps into the empty pizza parlor and out into the cold, reminding him to put on the shirt that he was still clutching to his chest. He was manhandled into a red car he'd never seen before, and Lee jumped into the driver's side, peeling out before he'd fully caught up. Where are we going? Got a job. Eliot didn't like the sound of that. Can you drop me off on the way? Afraid not, kid. Long as the wolves are looking for you, you're stuck with me. What? No, that's not going to work for me. I suggest you make it work. As of now, your options are stick with me or end up wolf kibble. Sticking with you is what got me into this mess in the first place. And your life is more exciting already. You're welcome. I don't want my life to be more exciting. Everyone's looking for excitement. You know, you could show a little gratitude. Eliot turned his wide, incredulous eyes on Lee. Gratitude? For what? Lee raised an eyebrow at his tone. For your new apprenticeship. You're now training with the best bounty hunter in the state. I don't want to be a bounty hunter. Yeah, we'll join the club. But until I can trust that you can handle yourself and won't end up puppy chow the next time I'm not around, you're stuck with me. Eliot sank down into his seat. I'm so not buzzed enough for this. All right, I have a little breaking point there if you want to comment on anything before I move on to the scene.
No, I thought it was good. I thought, because I did feel like Eliot would protest. He wouldn't want anything to do with this. This is bullshit. You know?
Right.
And I like how you kind of gave him something to, like, light a fire on his ass. Because, I mean, Eliot's kind of a
Sissy?
wuss.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
so, you know, I mean, I think the werewolves definitely highlight why he would get it. Because I was having a hard time with the motivation and everything like that.
Right.
And this is good. You gave him some good, believable motivation. I think, look, I'm not a wuss, but I would definitely, I think, move my ass if I knew that those were
Yeah.
that dude's buddies.
Right,
You
exactly.
know, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, let's do this. You know,
Maybe getting out of the house is a good thing right now.
So,
Yeah.
And no, and I agree. I think Elliot's definitely not the kind of person who cares about the excitement or anything. He just wants this mellow life where he
Right.
can chill, and now it's all being shaken up and turned upside down, and you know. So
Right.
I think you captured him perfectly, and your description of them. So they look like people, but then, you know, the little things that betray who they are as werewolves is perfect. Like, I'm like, that's great. Yeah, that's completely. I can almost see the cinematic of it. You know, so good stuff.
Cool. Thank you. All right. So go ahead with the last part here.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Lee pulled up to an expansive estate and scowled at all the cars taking up the lower part of the long drive. He recognized most of them, and it was far too much competition for his liking. There was no room for another car, so rather than parking in the street, he pulled right up onto the grass and drove straight up to the iron fence. He stepped out of the car, eyeing the black Lexus stopped between the gates and making his way to the driver's side with Eliot on his heels. The dark-tinted windows obscured the view, but not the smell. It was one he was far too familiar with. Lee pulled the door open and confirmed his hunch. The body inside had been dead for much longer than one night. Eliot gagged behind him as two more hunters approached. He knew them from the huntsman, Burke and Red. They often worked cases together. They took in the body, and Red pulled a device from his pocket, aiming it at the car. Picking up traces of magic, he confirmed, as if it was possible that the body had driven the car without the aid of magic. Dark magic, he added. Again, not exactly groundbreaking. Burke shook his head. Necromancers, no doubt about it. Lee nodded along. Clearly, that body's been dead for a while. The hunters eyed him with mistrust, but he was used to it. He shrugged and pulled Eliot away to look over the rest of the scene. Two guards were sprawled across the ground, much to Eliot's dismay. Oh, God, he whimpered. Are those bite marks? Another hunter examining the body saw Eliot and took pity on him. We're thinking some kind of small shifter. Feline, maybe. Cats did this? Had to have been, Lee agreed. Eliot's brow furrowed. But you just said... Look at this over here, Lee interrupted, dragging him over to another hunter, checking out debris littering the ground. The statues are broken. Whoever did this took the time to vandalize the place. Lena rolled her eyes. Even you aren't that dumb, Lee. The sorcerer had this place protected by golems. Whatever did this took them out before entering the house. It had to have been something powerful. She pushed aside a piece of the statue, revealing the black ooze underneath. Do golems bleed? Eliot asked. No, she answered. This is something else completely. Some kind of ectoplasm, maybe? Lee nodded. You're thinking a poltergeist. That would explain why they needed to hold the iron gates open. He gestured to the black Lexus, and Lena looked at him in surprise. Exactly. I think you're onto something there, Lena. Eliot gave him a strange look as he dragged him closer to the house. Lee paused to examine the door, with some strange symbols around it. What is it? Eliot asked. Sigils, another hunter answered. This was clearly the work of magic users. Black ash littered the inside of the house, and Lee nodded in agreement. He pointed up to the scorch marks along the top of the doorframe, a magic user strong enough to burn out the wards placed by a sorcerer. The man looked up at the burn marks that he clearly hadn't noticed previously. He covered his miss by nodding firmly. That only proves my point. Lena thinks it was a poltergeist, Lee pointed out. A powerful one might be able to burn out the magic. The other hunter shook his head firmly and held up the remnants of a spell. Lena needs to invest in better spells and equipment. You can't do this job effectively if you can't even rule out a haunting. Lee smiled, and it looked so out of place on him it was almost threatening. I'll let you tell her that, he joked as he moved on to the next room. The sorcerer's body was still laid out, mangled on the floor. Most of the other hunters had likely started there and worked their way out, leaving Lee and Eliot to investigate on their own. So far, you've agreed with every other hunter that did this, Eliot said, from across the room, which was as close as he dared to get to the body. What do you actually think? Lee's sharp eyes ran over every detail before he answered. Lena was right to question the iron gates being forced open, but it's not ghosts, as Jack pointed out. He eyed the bite marks. Something small, but shifters don't have problems with iron and wouldn't have needed to wedge the gate open. Between the size and the iron, I'm thinking Fey. No idea what kind, though. He crouched to look at the black ashy residue. Kid, you got some kind of baggie or something? Eliot looked down at his wrinkled, dirty pizza shirt and jeans. Why would you think I'm storing sandwich bags somewhere on me? Lee gave him a flat look. Come on, you got something on you. Dump out whatever you got and hand it over. This is for an investigation. He shook his head. I don't have anything on me. Lee grumbled and pulled out a little bag from his own pocket. Eliot scoffed. Seriously? You're trying to get me to dump my stash and you had a bag of, what is that, glitter? Lee ignored him and carried his bag to the nearest sink, dumping it down the drain with a lamenting sigh. Pulling a pocket knife, he scraped some of the residue into the now empty baggie. What are you going to do with that? Lee straightened and took one last look around. I know a guy. Very informative. Yelling outside the mansion drew the two of them out to find several bounty hunters holding back a newcomer. You, he growled the moment Lee was in sight. I'm going to kick your ass, Carver. Lee rolled his eyes. Relax, Rick. Your car's right there. Not a scratch on it. Rick saw his car sitting sedately behind the iron gate, and he calmed slightly. I'm warning you, Carver. Don't touch my car. Whatever you say, Rick. Lee led Eliot back towards the gate, bumping into Raina and a younger woman along the way. Hey, Raina, new apprentice? The woman's dark eyes shifted to Lee as if she hadn't seen him before he spoke. This is Rowan. The beautiful younger woman smiled up at Eliot, rendering him speechless. Lee cleared his throat with no effect. He tried again, giving the starstruck young man a nudge. Still nothing. Lee sighed. This is Eliot. Raina shook her head. Come on, Rowan, we have work to do. Right, we should get going too. Lee held a fist up to Raina, but she snatched her apprentice by the arm and dragged her away, leaving Lee hanging. His eyes narrowed at her back. What'd you do to piss her off? Eliot asked. No damn clue, he admitted. Let's get going. We gotta make a stop. How are we getting back? We don't have a car. Lee gave him a confused look. Sure we do. He headed straight back to the red Celica and hopped in. The car started right up, and Eliot hesitated until an enraged hunter came storming out of the mansion. Eliot scrambled to jump into the car as Lee just started backing out without him. God damn it, Carver, the red-faced man screeched as Lee turfed the lawn on his way back to the street. You're freaking crazy, Eliot breathed. Lee shrugged. Comes with the job. All right, that's it.
That was great. Like you gave, that's exactly what I imagined. Misleading people the whole way, using their. I mean, the only thing you didn't do that we talked about is him like stealing like information off of their instruments and stuff like that.
Well,
you kind of gave that with the first one, but
well, no, and then like also he kind of like pulled the not a ghost information out of the guy inside by saying, well, this person thinks, so he kind of weaseled it out other ways.
No, but that's perfect. It's exactly how I see him being, and I feel like he had a theory the whole time, refining it with like each piece of misinformation and letting them be wrong, and
right. And unlike all the other hunters who are getting only their own information, Lee's taking the whole picture from all of them and ruling things out along the way.
Well, it's not like this is a common scenario. It's not like every hunter on the planet is after the same gig regularly.
Right, but this is such a huge bounty.
Right. So in this instance, this is great. They're going to... no, good stuff. So I really appreciated the way that all came together. It fell together perfectly.
Thank you.
So,
I feel like it could probably use a little bit more description, Yeah,
but too much and it gets...
It takes away from, like, the action a little bit if you get too much into it, but...
I just saw a bunch of people complaining about that on, like, one of the threads I was commenting on. They're like, what makes a book boring for too much description? And I'm like, it's a hard line to walk. There's sometimes that I like giving a lot of description and stuff and, immersing you in the scene, but I get it.
But the nice thing is that this scene is also previously painted from your chapter before, you know, so we know what's there because we've already read it. But
hopefully you still see that image. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, there's still going to be like I figured like maybe in the part where he enters the mansion, the scent of burning, or like something burnt rubber or burnt plastic or something. So he's smelling the ward and maybe the magic as well. Yeah, the scent of ozone and all that.
There might be a couple of there might be a couple of clues left that maybe we want to go back and
feed in there.
Yeah, because ozone was a big one, but the ash might have a smell of its own.
Something burnt. Something
Like I didn't
like
mention.
I described the dead body smell, but like that's a given.
Yeah, I didn't. I mentioned a lot of the ozone smell, but I didn't mention what the ash might smell like. So
like maybe a sulfur. No, if we say sulfur, they're gonna think demons.
yeah, no, I was thinking like cedar or something like that. Like what kind of wood did they? Because maybe that's what it was. It was like a burnt wood that they were able to flare.
Okay.
You know, so.
So yeah, I
what's
mean,
something
we
that sticks out? You know, when you think of ash, like what's a smell that sticks out to you? That's smoky. You know.
Yeah.
What
I
kind of
don't
wood
know.
do you normally think of? You know,
Right.
around here we have a lot of pine that people burn. You know, but.
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't even have to be like if it's like the burnt out wards, you don't know what that was, you know. So it could be
Yeah.
like the scent of like anything burning.
Or it
truly.
could smell like. See, I don't know. If you haven't smelled it before, you wouldn't know. But there's a type of welder, like a MIG welder or whatever, where you can smell the chemicals and stuff. And I don't know. It makes.
Oh, that's not a bad idea. Like a chemically burned kind of smell.
Yeah.
Like a burnt chemical.
Yeah, because it could be alchemy.
Yeah.
for all we know.
Yeah. Exactly. So I don't know. Like piecing things like that in might draw you into the scene a little bit more.
Yeah, well, it's and elaborate on what I left behind, you know, because there's certain details that I didn't give away, but nobody's survived to impart that information. So
Right. So yeah, I mean, there's probably like those kinds of things that we can piece in there, but
okay, all right. Do we have anything else?
I don't think so.
So I think what we're going to do, I'm going to try. No guarantees, but I'm going to try to make it to where we can take a call in for next week's show to plan. Does that sound good?
Next week? Yeah, if you can get the audio working.
So we'll see if we have somebody in our list. I left a post up on Twitter, and a lot of people expressed interest. And realistically, I'm going to pick the first person who responds to me when I we go for this. Although I got a couple people in mind who I think might be a little forgiving with our technical difficulties until we get this worked out. Plus, I'm also waiting because our local phone stores are shut down because of all this. I have a phone that I'm trying to pick up to make our dedicated phone line. So if you try to call when we're not doing the show, it won't work. So.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, technology permitting, we'll figure it out.
Right, technology and schedules permitting.
Right.
We'll come back next week. We'll plan with a friend. One of you out there. So, all right, great. Then we'll see you guys next week. Don't forget to go and follow us on Twitter at the Dark Stormy K1. We now have a Reddit page, r/Dark and Stormy Nights. So, you can also Tears Got Books. So go check out her Twitter page, which is
at Nova Drake Writer.
So go check that out. Get some books. Just keep in contact with us. Let us know what you think. Add to the story. We look forward to hearing from you. Talk to you next time.